to the Daily Bite. I'm your host, Pastor Steve Andrews.
Today's text is 1 Chronicles chapter 23. When David was old and full of days, he made Solomon his son king over Israel. And David assembled all the leaders of Israel and the priests and the Levites. The Levites, 30 years old and upward, were numbered, and the total was 38,000 men. 24,000 of these, David said, shall have charge of the work in the house of Yahweh. 6,000 shall be officers and judges, 4,000 gatekeepers, and 4,000 shall offer praises to Yahweh with the instruments that I have made for praise. And David organized them in divisions, corresponding to the sons of Levi, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. The sons of Gershon were Ladan and Shimei. The sons of Ladan, Jehiel the chief, and Zetham, and Joel, 3. The sons of Shimei, Shelomoth, Hazael, and Haran, 3. These were the heads of the fathers' houses of Ladan. And the sons of Shimei, Jahath, Zena, and Jush, and Beriah. These 4 were the sons of Shimei. And Jahath was the chief, and Ziza the second. But Jush and Beriah did not have many sons, therefore they became counted as a single father's house. The sons of Kohath, Amram, Izhar, Hebron, and Uzziel, 4. The sons of Amram, Aaron and Moses. Aaron was set apart to dedicate the most holy things, that he and his sons forever should make offerings before Yahweh, and minister to him, and pronounce blessings in his name forever. But the sons of Moses, the man of God, were named among the tribe of Levi. The sons of Moses, Gershom and Eleazar. The sons of Gershom, Shebuel, the chief. The sons of Eleazar, Rehabiah, the chief. Eleazar had no other sons, but the sons of Rehabiah were very many. The sons of Izhar, Shelomith, the chief. The sons of Hebron, Jeriah, the chief. Amariah, the second. Jahaziel, the third. Jechamim, the fourth. The sons of Uzziel, Micah, the chief, and Ishiah, the second. The sons of Merari, Mali, and Mushi. The sons of Mali, Eleazar, and Kish. Eleazar died having no sons but only daughters. Their kinsmen, the sons of Kish, married them. The sons of Mushi, Mali, Ader, and Jeremoth, 3. These were the sons of Levi by their fathers' houses, the heads of fathers' houses as they were listed according to the number of the names of the individuals, from 20 years old and upward, who were to do the work for the service of the house of Yahweh. For David said, Yahweh the God of Israel has given rest to his people, and he dwells in Jerusalem forever. And so the Levites no longer need to carry the tabernacle or any of the things for its service. For by the last words of David the sons of Levi were numbered from 20 years old and upward, for their duty was to assist the sons of Aaron for the service of the house of Yahweh, having the care of the courts and the chambers, the cleansing of all that is holy, and any work for the service of the house of God. Their duty was also to assist with the showbread, the flour for the grain offering, the wafers of unleavened bread, the baked offering, the offering mixed with oil, and all the measures of quantity or size. And they were to stand every morning thanking and praising Yahweh, and likewise at evening, and whenever burnt offerings were offered to Yahweh on Sabbaths, new moons, and feast days, according to the number required of them regularly before Yahweh. Thus they were to keep charge of the tent of meeting and the sanctuary, and to attend the sons of Aaron their brothers for the service of the house of Yahweh. This is the word of the Lord. Our text today is going to start out at the end of King David's life, as he's going to be giving instructions to Solomon as he makes Solomon king in his place. Now first, the note, this is 2 Samuel chapter 5, verse 4, where we would learn that David is 70 years old at this point. He was 30 when he became king, and he reigned 40 years as king over God's people, so 70 years total. 1 Chronicles is going to skip over the whole struggle of Solomon to become king in 1 Kings chapter 1, where one of David's other sons, Adonijah, tried to set himself on the throne instead. It skips over all of that and continues to keep its focus on, instead, again, the purpose of the book, of Chronicles being the worship of God's people, the temple, God's throne, God's presence in the midst of his people. So that's where we're going to go, and we're going to get a repetition here in some ways. We had all of chapter 6 earlier was the genealogy of Levi and his descendants, and we get some of that again here at this point. So verses 2 all the way up through 23 are some genealogy really at this point. We learn that the Levites from 30 years old and upward, they were to be at that point serving in the house of the Lord. 38,000 men. It's a sizable number to take part in doing all the tasks that Yahweh had for the Levites to do. They couldn't be priests until 30 either. The numbers 30, 25, and 20 are all going to be of relevance. So Numbers chapter 4 is the idea of 30, I believe, for the first time. Numbers chapter 8 gives you the idea of 25. So there were a few ways that they could start serving a couple years earlier. And then David's going to change the age to 20 by the time we get to the end of the text today. So David's going to take those 38,000 men, he's going to divide them. 24,000 having the work of the house of Yahweh. So aiding the priests with the various tasks that are to be done and caring for the temple. 4,000 gatekeepers. 4,000 praisers, those who sing praise to Yahweh throughout the day. So we've got these three different groups. I skipped over, 6,000 officers and judges. So 4 different groups. So officers and judges might remind you of Moses when he first led Israel out of Egypt. He served as their chief officer and judge, and if anyone had a problem, they would bring it to Moses. He would decide in the sight of Yahweh what was good, what was right before the people. Now, Jethro, in Exodus 18, father-in-law to Moses, comes along and essentially tells Moses he's going to burn out doing it this way, and that he should appoint others to take on the easier cases, and if they have trouble with those, bring the cases to Moses, and he would decide the harder cases in that way. So this temple structure is going to have the Levites continuing to serve in such a function, such a role. Gatekeepers oversee who comes and goes, and then again, those who would praise Yahweh throughout the day. With the instruments David's made, and we're going to see more about this praise, not only today, but also in chapter 25 as well. So Levi's 3 sons, Gershon, Kohath, Merari, and we get a paragraph for the descendants of each. Again, 1 Chronicles chapter 6 is going to have some matching with this, not fully, but some. I'm going to skip over. There's not much to say really about these genealogies at this point. These are the sons of Levi. The focus is going to be in that second paragraph at verse 12, really then into verse 13, that from Amram you get both Aaron and Moses. Aaron is going to be set apart to be the priest, the high priest over Israel, and his sons after him will follow on in that task. So the priestly tribe is Levi, yes, but specifically the priests come from Aaron and from his descendants. They don't come from just any Levite. And so even Moses and his descendants after him will be lumped back into the rest of Levi. They're not counted on as priests. There is that distinction. So Aaron and his sons as priests will offer sacrifices before Yahweh on behalf of the people. Leviticus chapters 1 through 7, the different types of sacrifices that there were for the forgiveness of sins. This includes the high priest, chief priest, once a year on the Day of Atonement, going in before the ark, making that sacrifice, 2 sacrifices, on behalf of himself and the people. Also ministering to him, minister or to serve, so serving Yahweh in his house. They think of the tabernacle originally having the table of the bread of the presence, the golden lampstand, and the incense altar, and so to keep the lampstand functioning, keep it lit, to keep the prayers of the church, of the people, on that altar of incense, and so forth. They had roles to do serving in the house of the Lord. And then also third, pronouncing blessings in his name upon his people. Numbers chapter 6, a very familiar passage as we get to hear it. In many of our Lutheran churches, we hear it every week as the closing benediction. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you, be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you with his favor and give to you his peace. Those are given to Aaron to speak over the people as priest. Now, it would be worth noting, this is Chronicles, so this is several hundred years in the future. David's death is going to be around maybe 960 BC, a few years earlier than that, and Solomon then takes over as king. So King Saul, 1048 until 1008, so I guess 968, roughly, is our timestamp on this text. But the Chronicles are recorded 500 years later, after the exile to Babylon, after the return to Jerusalem, after things have been rebuilt. And Ezra chapter 2 verse 40 is going to mention very few Levites return. Actually, a significant number of priests, over 4,000 of them. But of the Levites themselves, so of the other groups of Levi, other than just Aaron's descendants, which is just a small fraction, right? The small fraction was a great number coming out of exile. The great number, the great part of the tribe, comes out of exile at only 341. Over 4,000 priests, but only 341 other Levites who get to do the rest of the work of assisting the priests, being gatekeepers, singing God's praise, being officers and judges, all these sorts of things in God's house. So that's a strange note to pick up on, though, historically for the people. Then the last paragraph today is going to show a shift as David is moving the number from 30 to 20. Now, we could perhaps try to make the argument that David is simply setting them apart early, like he prepared the materials in yesterday's chapter in advance for Solomon to use, so he's already earmarking these 20-year-olds and upwards, 20 to 30, for service to the Lord's house that is coming. But it does seem more like a real shift, and it could be, based on verse 26, that the Levites no longer need to carry the tabernacle, so it's an easier work. Instead of taking apart the things of God, moving them from one place to another, and the labor that entailed, the workload has shifted. And so David is shifting the age, making it lower. I don't know. That's what it seems to be here from the text, from what King David has declared. And that's what verse 27 does say, for by the last words of David, the sons of Levi were numbered from 20 years old and upward. They are to assist the sons of Aaron in caring for the house of Yahweh, the temple, its courts, its chambers. So the temple is going to have various rooms all around it, and those rooms, some are for storage, some are used as offices, living quarters, perhaps even. So various purposes, they're to care for those. And then they are also to care for anything in the work of the Lord. Verse 29, we're going to start in the temple and make our way out of it, in a sense, as you get the showbread, which is going to be the table of the presence in the holy place inside the temple. Whereas if you move to the end of verse 29, any measure of quantity or size. Now we're talking about more generically all the offerings that come in that are going to be burned on the altar outside in the courtyard. And so the priests are receiving assistance with whatever they need assistance with from the other Levites. So you've got, I guess, a movement from the tasks inside to the tasks outside the temple. You might notice the wafers of unleavened bread. That might remind you of the way we do the Lord's Supper today with those little wafers. They are bread, by the way. They really are. There's a whole different story involving the Catholic Church that goes behind why we use wafers today. But I might leave that for another day. Instead, maybe a conversation for your family. Who cares for these things today? So next time you're in church, look around. You've got pews, you've got hymnals, Bibles, you've got the lampstands, the candles. You've got the eternal candle. You've got the altar, the flowers, most likely most churches have. You have the actual bread and wine that are set up on the altar. All of this kind of stuff. Who takes care of that? And there's different answers to that. It depends on where you are. Some of those things are cared for by what we would call the altar guild. Some places, some of these things will be cared for very specifically by a pastor who oversees that work in various ways. So if you don't know how it's done at your church, ask your pastor. He'd be happy to share about the holy things in your house. And then if you do know, go ahead and share that with your children directly. And if you're involved, show your children how it's done. Invite them to assist you one day with the work in the Lord's house. Verse 30, they stand every morning thanking and praising God, and also at evening. So the 4,000 were set apart to offer praise and use the instruments of David. And they also do it at any time of the offerings that are made on the Sabbaths, new moons, feast days. And there's several of those. I mean, a Sabbath is once a week, new moon is once a month. The feast days, those happen primarily in the 1st and the 7th month of the year. They're holy days, almost like we have Christmas and Easter staggered on the calendar. It might be a good time to talk about church holidays, or even just start with what days do you go to church? Like we started with Sabbath here once a week. We go to church once a week. But then also talk about the other days. You got Ascension, Ash Wednesday, Advent, Lent, all those kinds of other times. Christmas doesn't usually fall on a Sunday that you go to worship. So what are the extras for? What's special about those days? Why do we set them apart? And those are good family conversations too, to teach your children using our holy days how all of life points to Christ and to his gifts. And the text concludes by simply saying that they're going to keep this charge. They're going to serve, they're going to assist the sons of Aaron in the temple, in the house of Yahweh.